Let's look at Anthony Ryder from South Lyon, Michigan, recently selected as the Lions 2020 Fan of the Year. He has a passion about sports broadcasting.
With the 112th selection in the 2021 NFL Draft, the Detroit Lions select Amon-Ra St. Brown, wide receiver, USC. One pride, baby! Yeah!
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another Detroit Lions video. Now, the NFL Draft is just a few days away, and with that being the case, we still have a little bit more to talk about before night one of the 2022 NFL Draft. And today we are going to be looking at the best and worst case scenarios at the number 2 overall position, going from the worst possible scenario to the best possible scenario, narrowing it down to the top 2 or 3 players the Lions could and should be targeting in the 2022 NFL Draft. And then tomorrow we will go from those top 3 down to the final one. So with all of that being said, and without any further ado, let's get right into taking a look at the best and worst scenarios for the Detroit Lions on night 1 of the NFL Draft. Now, with this being the case, we're going to start off at the bottom and we're going to work our way up. We're going to start with the worst situations and move on to the best situations. Now, the worst situation by far for the Detroit Lions, and in my opinion, the worst thing they can do on night 1 of the draft, is take Travon Walker, the edge rusher from Georgia. If they do this, I will give this an F grade. I do not like Travon Walker. I do not think that day 1 Travon Walker will be any kind of an impact player on this defense. And I think if you're talking about day 1 prospects as far as impact as early as day 1, I think that Travon Walker is not even a top 32 player in this class. I wouldn't even put him as a top 5, top 6 edge rusher for impact on day 1. He has not showed me skills. He has not showed me tools, or he has not showed me skills. He has not shown me production. He has not shown the ability to master multiple pass rushing moves or counters. He is a great athlete, but to me, he is not a great football player. I do not think he is worthy of the 2nd overall pick. And quite honestly, I don't think Travon Walker should be taken anywhere near the top 5 of the NFL Draft. If you want to tell me that his upside is worthy of a top 15, top 20 pick in the NFL Draft, that I would give you. I think his upside is phenomenal, and if developed properly, he can be a phenomenal edge rusher in this draft and in the NFL. But on day 1, if you're looking for an immediate impact starter, Travon Walker is not your guy. I think he has the highest bust potential of any player in this class as far as a top 5, top 10 pick in this class. And if I'm the Detroit Lions, I would not waste a pick or risk a pick on the riskiest player in this class with arguably the biggest potential to be a bust in the NFL. Now, this is the only grade that I have as an F. This is the only failing grade I would give the Detroit Lions on night 1. Any other pick, I think, is very, at least, understandable for the Detroit Lions. And that's going to be very evident as the jump to the 2nd worst position, in my opinion, would be to draft Malik Willis. Now, where I gave Travon Walker an F grade, I would give Malik Willis a B grade because I think there's a lot of good around Malik Willis. I think his potential's there. I think that on day 1, he could be a very good starter, and I think he has not necessarily as low as a floor of Travon Walker, right? Yes, Malik Willis is very raw, but he has at least shown the ability to progress. He has shown the ability to read defenses. He has shown the ability to extend plays and to, get to the 2nd and 3rd and 4th read. He's shown the ability to check the ball down. He's shown patience. He's shown arm strength. He has shown everything that I would want to see out of a quarterback at the next level, and has proved to me that he is capable of doing so, right? And although he's not consistent with everything, although he has some inconsistencies with deep ball accuracy, he has some inconsistencies with anticipation, he has some inconsistencies here and there for sure, which is why I don't think he'd be the best pick for night 1. I believe Malik Willis would not be a day 1 starter for the Detroit Lions, but I believe he could be a year 2 starter, a year 3 starter. I think he could be a year 10 starter for the Detroit Lions down the line, and if developed properly, he can be an MVP caliber player. With the fact that his floor is so low and the fact that he wouldn't be starting on day 1, I just think that it's not the best use of the second overall pick. Do I believe Malik Willis is 100% worthy of a top 5 pick? I do. I think day one, he is going to go incredibly high because I think he is that good of a football player, and I think he's worthy of that second overall pick. However, I just don't think that that would be maximizing the value of the number 2 overall pick. Just if you're going number 2, I'd want a day one starter. I want a day one impact guy, and Malik Willis just isn't that. So like I said, worthy of the 2 pick? Absolutely. Would I be mad if they take Willis at 2? Absolutely not. But I just don't think they're maximizing the value and the potential at number 2 if they end up taking Malik Willis. Now, the same thing goes, and the same logic applies to Sauce Gardner at the number 2 overall pick. I think this one is a very long shot to happen, but I do think it's very possible. And although Ahmad Gardner is a great player, although Sauce is one of the best cornerback prospects in quite a while, I don't think it's going to be maximizing the value of the number 2 overall pick. You know, personally, he's a great cornerback. He might end up being a Pro Bowl cornerback his first season in the NFL. If you draft a Pro Bowler in the first round, you're pretty much getting good value for that first round pick, regardless of if it's pick 1 or pick 32. But at the end of the day, I just don't think corner is as big of a need, and I don't think corner is a big enough need to justify taking it with a top 5 selection in 2 of the last 3 draft classes. I just think the secondary isn't a good enough place right now. I think especially the cornerback room with 6 strong and 6 deep, plus Will Harris as a 7th if you really need him. I truly believe that cornerback just isn't that big of a need. It can certainly be addressed, but at number 2, although you'd be getting a great player, I really think you could maximize, and I think you could make better use of the number 2 overall pick. That grade would also be a B because I can see where they're going with it. I just personally think that you could get better value from that second overall pick. Now, getting on to the A grades, there are 3 players that I truly believe will have the biggest impact with the highest ceilings, and there are 3 players that I want more than the rest. The first of which is Kayvon Thibodeaux. Kayvon Thibodeaux, if the character concerns were not there, would be, in my opinion, the consensus number 1 pick and the consensus number 1 edge rusher in this class. If he didn't have the character concerns, if he didn't have the personality issues, he would be the consensus number 1 pick because I think he is the most talented edge rusher in this class. I think he has the most tools. I think he's at a decent spot for a rookie season. I think he's got a decent floor with an incredibly high ceiling. I'm talking a ceiling of an all-pro pass rusher and a floor of a 6 to 7 sack guy on day 1. I think he is the best pass rusher in the NFL draft, but his personality does scare me, right? Not to the point where I think he'll fall out of the top 5, not to the point where I think he'll even fall out of the top 10, but at the end of the day, if every NFL team is concerned about his personality, and if every NFL team seems to have this concern about whether he's fully committed to football, that tells me that there is something that we don't know about Kayvon Thibodeaux. Although all the things I have seen from teammates and coaches and press conferences and stuff like that say Kayvon Thibodeaux is a great teammate, he's a great player, he's focused on football, all this and that. If NFL teams are concerned about it, if NFL teams have met with this guy multiple times and they still have concerns about his personality, that does concern me. But if you can guarantee me that Kayvon Thibodeaux is 100% focused on football, that he will, that his attitude is fine, that he's a good teammate, he works hard and all that, then he is an A graded pick for me. But again, and if the Lions draft him, I'm going to assume that all the character issues are okay. I'm going to consider the fact that if the Lions do draft him, then the character concerns must not be that big of an issue. So if they draft him, I'll give it an A because I'm assuming all the character stuff has been worked out. And he, as I said, I believe is the most talented player day 1 with the longevity of an all-pro pass rusher. Now, Aiden Hutchinson is also in this tier. And Aiden Hutchinson, as I've said for a while, is my pass rusher too. But I think he has a lot of things on Kayvon Thibodeaux that Kayvon Thibodeaux does not have on him. He's a much better run stopper. I think he's a much better culture fit. I think that he is a much higher motor. I think he's a better leader on the field. And I think his energy is going to be infectious for the Detroit Lions defense. I think he fits the idea, fits the mentality that Dan Campbell wants this team to have. And although I think he has a limited ceiling, I think day 1 you might get a better prospect than Kayvon Thibodeaux. And I think as far as leadership ability, I think as far as locker room and culture fits, I think that Aiden Hutchinson is arguably the best player to fill in at that position. That's why I also give him an A grade. Aiden Hutchinson is one of the best players in this class. Some people have him as the best player in this class. And I think Aiden Hutchinson at the number 2 overall pick is a great pick. And I feel like I've been talking down on Aiden Hutchinson all offseason. I feel like I've been saying, okay, he's edge rusher 2. I wouldn't take him at number 2. I'd take Kayvon Thibodeaux, this and that. If Aiden Hutchinson ends up being the pick, it's a great story. You're getting a great player day 1. And although I've said multiple times, I would not draft Maxx Crosby, my NFL comparison to him, if the 2nd overall pick. If I were to acquire Maxx Crosby for my football team, I would be extremely happy with the production, with the level of play, and with the leadership and motor that he brings to the Motor City. So with that being the case, I would give it an A. If they draft Aiden Hutchinson, it's an A pick in my book, and I think you move on with arguably the best player to come out of the 2022 NFL Draft. And then again, the last A grade and the last player we will talk about today is Kyle Hamilton. I know that the safety position is not valued as highly as a lot of people would say. I know a lot of people say that the safety position is not very valuable in the NFL. I am here to tell you that is simply not true. The safety position is one of the biggest impact positions on the field. The greatest example of this in the NFL is the Tyrann Mathieu effect, right? He was on the Arizona Cardinals. They had a very good defense. He went to a Houston Texans defense that wasn't very good, made them a playoff team and made them a very good defense. Went to a Chiefs defense that was worst in the NFL, was last in the NFL in 2019, made them a serviceable defense and helped them win a Super Bowl because of that. Tyrann Mathieu is one of the most effective players in the NFL and single-handedly almost makes defenses better by himself. Jesse Bates makes the Cincinnati defense significantly better than they otherwise would be. Justin Simmons makes the Denver Broncos defense significantly better than it otherwise be. Kevin Byard makes the Titans defense much, much better than they otherwise would be without him. Elite safety play in the NFL makes defenses great. And you can go back years, you can go back to last season, you can go back to 2020, you can go back to the 90s, you can go back to the early 2000s. Every single great defense had a great safety, and the Lions, although they have good safeties, do not have a great safety. Kyle Hamilton, and we will talk about this a lot more tomorrow, Kyle Hamilton, in my opinion, is my 2nd highest graded player in this NFL draft class, only behind Ikem Ekwonu from NC State. And I believe NC State's and Ikem Ekwonu will go number 1 overall. Therefore, Kyle Hamilton, being the best player available at the biggest position of need at a severely underrated position in the NFL, will be the number 2 overall pick, or at least that's what I think will happen. But regardless of what will happen, I give all 3 of these players an absolute A grade. If we hit any of these 3 guys with the 2nd overall pick, I will consider a successful, not only successful, a very, very good job done by Brad Holmes and the rest of the Detroit Lions. Now, I do have one A+ scenario, and that would be trading back into the middle of the 1st round and acquiring another 1st round pick for next year. But since that is not 100% within the Lions' control of things, and since obviously you need 2 teams to make a trade, that in my opinion would be the best outcome, which I think everybody kind of knew. But as far as things that are in the control of the Detroit Lions, I think any of Kayvon Thibodeaux, Aiden Hutchinson, and Kyle Hamilton will be an A+ pick. I mean, I don't think you could do much better than the top 3, and I think those guys are your top 3 players for the NFL draft. But with all that being said, that is all for you guys today. Let me know down in the comments below, what would you grade these scenarios? Go from Travon Walker to Malik Willis to Sauce Gardner to Hutchinson, Kayvon, Kyle Hamilton, and the trade. Let me know what you would grade these scenarios. Let me know what you would grade these picks if they were to come true. I'd be very curious to see where you guys sit. But with all that being said, that is all for you guys today. Thank you all so very much for watching, and until next time, and as always, go Lions.